everybody, and welcome back. This is Gerald with your weather. We have a lot going on, including this very dynamic storm that is going to move through the country starting tomorrow. And let me tell you, this thing is going to pack a punch. Just to give you a quick kind of spoiler alert on this thing, sections of Texas tomorrow will likely have tornado warnings ongoing, while other parts of the state are under a winter storm warning. So that's how dynamic this system is going to be, splitting states in half between snow and tornadoes. So a lot to unpack here with this system. And then other than that, we're also going to talk about this major Arctic outbreak I expect to move through the lower 48 going into late January and starting February off with a bang with these super cold temperatures that will also introduce those snow chances to a lot of us. So with that said, if you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe. We have a lot that we've done on this channel and we're continuing to grow and we are really going places with this platform, so I really would love for you to join us. Other than that though, let's go ahead and get into it because this is a lot that we need to talk about and I want to get this information out to you and as quickly of a timetable as possible. So looking at radar here, right now we kind of just have what's left of that weekend system moving through New England, kind of beginning to work out. By the time you're watching this video, most places will likely be done with that precipitation, but we have had some snow falling currently in Boston, and that will continue for the next couple of hours before moving offshore into the Atlantic. Other than that, it has been really a pleasant day here for much of us in the lower 48, but that will quickly change going into tonight and into tomorrow. So let's go ahead and take a look at our satellite imagery. And right now you're thinking, what storm is he talking about? There is absolutely nothing here that is sticking out. Well, again, we have what's left here in the northeast, but what you really want to look at here is this kind of disorganized area of those green and yellow colors down into the four corners. As we get into tonight and into tomorrow, this is going to do what we call eject, or work its way up through the plains, and whenever it does that and it can tap into this warm Gulf moisture, this storm will really get cranking and it will bring very large impacts to a lot of us. So looking at some of those impacts, here are all of our watches and warnings we currently have for the lower 48. And as you can see, we already have winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings here from the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles into central Oklahoma, the Oklahoma City metro area under some of these advisories and warnings. And then other than that, in this light blue indicating those winter storm watches, already stretching up from Oklahoma up through the Great Lakes. So a wide array of places are going to be under the gun here. And something that you don't currently see, but we will likely see tomorrow, will be tornado watches here along the Gulf Coast from Texas through Louisiana and into Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. So looking at tonight's temperatures, do want to show you this real quick. A lot cooler of a night, a more January-like night ahead of us. Compared to the last couple nights for sure. So go ahead and find where you live and you can see what to expect tonight in terms of temperatures. And then the same thing going into tomorrow, more of a January-like day, but this is when the storm's going to get cranking. So you really got to be careful. Whenever you see these very warm colors here into the Gulf Coast states, that is going to help fuel some of these storms that will likely turn tornadic tomorrow afternoon. And some of these could get strong, meaning stronger than an EF2 rating. And that's when these tornadoes really start to cause havoc and really sometimes can become quite life-changing for some folks. Other than that, we will have that snow unfolding here to the north side of this system. And whenever you watch tomorrow's video and you see the radar, we're going to be looking at quite a mess here into the southern plains. But other than that, relatively nice weather still here across the eastern seaboard, but that will change as we get into Wednesday. So Wednesday temperatures here, again, got to watch out for that severe weather threat with these warmer temperatures into the southeastern states, and then that snow unfolding on the northern side, but we'll break all that down here in a minute. All right, so now we're going to start talking about this system a little more in depth, and I'm going to show you each region, each impact, and how bad I think it is going to be. So looking here at our winter storm impacts, here's your key at the bottom. Once you start getting past this yellow area and into this moderate color, that's when those impacts really start to rise. And those places that you see this red creeping in, that's where we expect major impacts. So major travel disruptions, power outages, and just a wide array of impacts for a very big swath of the country here. So you could drive from near Albuquerque, New Mexico, all the way to Maine without getting out of this winter storm warning impacts. So that is how much of the country is going to be impacted here. And if you're not in these areas, then you're likely going to be dealing with that severe weather in the Gulf Coast, or still just heavy rain in between. So a lot going on here and a lot to unpack. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll start here in the southern plains, who are going to first get the start of the system, and then we're going to work our way through the country and show you all those places that will see impacts from this system. So right now, still relatively nice here in the southern plains. That changes as we get into the overnight. You can see this low pressure here is going to be able to tap into that Gulf of Mexico moisture and help to create some of this precipitation. So likely snow breaking out here into the Texas Panhandle overnight tonight, and then rain, for areas further, to the south and east. So we're gonna have to watch that threat as well. But when this thing really gets going is into tomorrow afternoon here. So you notice this heavy, wet snow falling into sections of northern Texas and central Oklahoma. A lot of this that you see rain here, I would expect to be snow. So kind of ignore those green colors and pretend that they're blue there up towards the Tulsa area. But on the south side of this, look at these storms firing up. And we're going to look at those ingredients that are likely going to create tornadic conditions for some of these storms. But you really want to be careful here along the Gulf Coast, where we get those warm temperatures to help fuel this line of storms, and some of them will likely become tornadic. So that's tomorrow afternoon. As we begin to get into tomorrow evening around sunset, still dealing with the strong line of storms here as that begins to push into Louisiana and Mississippi around sunset. And now this is whenever those heavy snow totals will likely begin here into sections of Arkansas. I think northwestern Arkansas is going to get absolutely hammered with this storm. Wouldn't be surprised to see some places get close to a foot of snow up there. 8 to 12 inches widespread there into this section of northern Arkansas. Other than that, still snow, although becoming lighter here throughout Texas and Oklahoma as we get into tomorrow evening. And then that system continues into the overnight Tuesday, bringing snow still into sections of Arkansas and then up through the Ohio River Valley, which we'll discuss here in a second. But still this line of dangerous storms through the overnight to tomorrow night and into Wednesday morning along the Gulf Coast, before luckily, as we get into Wednesday afternoon, we begin to clear out here into the southern plains. All right, so taking a more in-depth look at this severe weather threat, you can see we have an enhanced risk already issued here by the Storm Prediction Center throughout the Gulf Coast for tomorrow afternoon. We're going to go ahead and break that down for you and look at some of these ingredients that we're working with. So the Storm Prediction Center releases a discussion or what they think their thoughts are on events. And some of the language they've been using for this is honestly kind of insane. They've really been hitting home on this map right here. And what this is wind shear. So the more of this wind shear or these brighter colors you see, the easier it is for these storms to begin to rotate. So you see these really bright colors, and I'll change my color here on my cursor so you can see it a little bit better. These really bright colors here along the Gulf Coast and into central Texas. And what you'll see here as we get into tomorrow afternoon, these bright colors continue to push through. And whenever you see these yellow, these kind of yellow oranges colors, that's when things kind of start to get off the charts. What I mean by that is way beyond what is needed for these storms to become dangerous and severe. So you see that section of ingredients pushes through tomorrow afternoon and into tomorrow evening. So we have that. What we're lacking a little bit, and this is why most of this will be confined to the coastal areas here and not so much inland, is those warm temperatures to help fuel these storms. So looking at that instability for tomorrow afternoon, you can see that builds in here. And if this does verify and we get these numbers past 1,000 here, we're going to have serious problems here along the Gulf Coast of Texas. And that's where my biggest concern is for tomorrow afternoon, is right here into the Houston area, and then just kind of down the Texas coastline here and then through Louisiana. If you get any of this overlapping of that strong wind shear and this cape or that thunderstorm fuel, that's whenever you will really have problems. This is going into the overnight tomorrow. You can see that line of cape continues to ride the Gulf Coast before eventually clearing the region, going further into Wednesday afternoon. So looking at the significant tornado parameters, which is kind of all these ingredients put together to show you who likely has the best chance of seeing those strong tornadoes. Moving this into tomorrow afternoon, This is what I'm talking about. This is why I would be worried here into sections of the Gulf Coast of Texas. Anytime you see these yellow colors, these red colors, that's when you really want to watch out, because that means the ingredients are definitely there for these storms to begin to rotate and cause big time problems. And you see that then moves into Louisiana, although weakening slightly as we get into the overnight hours tomorrow. So next place we got to look at here is the southeast, because they will also be dealing with some of this severe weather going into tomorrow night. So I do want to touch on that, and including rain here for those of us that won't be seeing that severe weather. So looking at this here, pretty clear tomorrow, including tomorrow morning. It's tomorrow afternoon whenever you see here into sections of the deep south that rain begins to return, and with it we will have that severe weather threat along the Gulf Coast. So timing out those storms, this is again about sunset tomorrow. You see that rain there right along the Gulf Coast, and right here where you see this line of storms is where we will have that tornadic potential. So as we go further ahead into time here, going into the overnight, you continue to see those storms working their way through the Gulf Coast, and then still seeing showers and storms on the northern side of this going further into Wednesday morning. So overnight tomorrow night through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning here, still dealing with a strong line of storms and even rain further north here into northern Georgia, into the upstate of South Carolina, before this line of storms finally begins to push offshore as we get into the evening and overnight on Wednesday. So again, looking at some of these ingredients, looking at that wind shear, again, this is going into tomorrow afternoon. Plenty to work with here into sections of Louisiana, Mississippi, coastal Alabama. And then looking here at that instability, same story. Once we get that instability to surge up towards the coast here, into sections of New Orleans, Mobile, Alabama, down towards Biloxi, Mississippi, and into the Florida Panhandle, that's where we will have those problems, where this instability overlaps with that severe weather. And again, this will be for these areas more into the overnight of Tuesday as that line of storms push through. So looking at those significant tornado potential, or this STP, significant tornado parameter if you prefer, pretty quiet here for these areas. Once we get into tomorrow afternoon, you can see those ingredients move out of Texas and into these coastal regions of Louisiana, Mississippi, overnight here into Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, before Wednesday we'll have to watch for those storms to potentially work into the coastal plain here of the southeast. But we'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay, so now switching back to the snowier side of this. Now we're going to look at the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys here with that snow potential, including rain for a lot of us. So no matter what, if you're living in this area, you're going to be impacted. So this is going into the overnight Tuesday. So this is whenever I expect that precipitation shield to kind of begin to move into the St. Louis metro, and especially areas south of St. Louis, I think getting a pretty good swath of snow with this system. And then as we get into daytime on Wednesday, or I should say sunrise here, you can see that band of snow works all the way up here through the Midwest from St. Louis to Springfield, Illinois, Indianapolis, and then up towards the Cleveland area, Columbus, Ohio, likely seeing some of that snow as well. On the south side of this, still a lot of rain that we're going to be dealing with, and even maybe a little bit of icing here, kind of in between the zone, what we like to call the battleground zone, where you kind of have those different precipitation types fighting it out to see who kind of wins over. But I think we will have a little bit of icing potential there in between these two main features of the storm. So as we get into Wednesday afternoon here, you can see we begin to clear out for most of the area, and then we'll begin to see some of that snow begin to work up into the Great Lakes, into the Detroit area, into Chicago, into Wednesday afternoon, and then that line of storms continuing to push through the mid-Atlantic during the afternoon Wednesday. And then as we get overnight into Wednesday, again, a lot clearer conditions, maybe some back-end snow showers to worry about through here, but nothing compared to what we will be dealing with overnight Tuesday and into Wednesday morning. Okay, now shifting to the mid-Atlantic. And if you've made it this far, put something in the comments saying, hey, I made it to the part where you said the mid-Atlantic, because good job, you made it halfway through the video, and I'm trying my best to get us through this, because I know that this is a lot to talk about, but it is super important, because this will be very impactful. So, moving this ahead for the mid-Atlantic, again, a pretty nice day tomorrow, really, for these areas further to the east. I'm sorry, I keep clicking for a sounding, but much nicer weather for areas into the mid-Atlantic on Tuesday afternoon than our friends back out west towards the Texas and Oklahoma area. So tomorrow, you got plenty of time to get things done in the mid-Atlantic. If you got plans, go ahead and get them done before Wednesday, because Wednesday will be more of our impact day here for these areas. So as you can see here, going into the overnight Tuesday, that line of storms and that precipitation shield is going to begin to march eastward into the mid-Atlantic. Rain starting here into the Carolinas overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, and this snow shield getting going here into northern sections of the mid-Atlantic, into the Pittsburgh area, if you want to consider Pittsburgh the mid-Atlantic. I guess it's kind of sandwiched between the Midwest, Northeast, and mid-Atlantic. But either way, getting that snow to move here through Pennsylvania as we go into the morning hours of Wednesday, and then that rain to areas further south. Gonna have to really watch for icing here into the higher terrains of West Virginia and Virginia, where we have those colder temperatures hanging around, and that is going to help to cause a real problem there in terms of icing. So make sure you don't let your guard down there into the higher terrains there. But what I do want to point out here that models have been hinting at, this is Wednesday afternoon. So this is whenever we'll have to watch out for a severe weather threat here into the southeastern part of the mid-Atlantic, into the Carolina coastal plain, where we have enough of that instability overlapping with some of these stronger storms moving through that instability. But notice here in a place like Baltimore, maybe even Washington, D.C., really close to that snow line here at the beginning. So I think a lot of these places may start as a quick burst of snow before changing to sleet and then eventually rain. So don't get caught off guard Wednesday afternoon if you see a quick burst of snow to start this thing in a place like D.C. or Baltimore before eventually we get a switch over to all rain and some storms here further to the south. This is going into the overnight Wednesday. You can see that rain continuing, and this is as far as our model goes. But overall showing that as we get overnight Thursday, this line of storms will begin to work its way off the coast, and we'll have quite a nice Thursday in store for us in the mid-Atlantic. And that's whenever we'll watch for some of this northwest flow to kick in on the backside of this low pressure. Okay, so that's the mid-Atlantic. I do want to point this out, actually. This is that severe weather threat that we have on Wednesday here through the mid-Atlantic. So you can see all the way here from Norfolk, Virginia, down through Tallahassee, kind of watching this line of storms as it gets into this kind of warm sector with some of that instability, helping these storms to potentially grow and cause problems on Wednesday. But we'll talk more about that in tomorrow's video, and we'll break down those ingredients a little bit more. Okay, so now looking at the Northeast and the impacts we're going to see here. Northeast is really going to be split in half here between super heavy snow and a lot of very heavy rain. So let's go ahead and break that down for you. Moving us ahead, and also for the Northeast, I will mention I am going to use the Euro model here just because it's still a bit far out in the Northeast to use our mesoscale models. So we're going to use the Euro, but I think the Euro is doing a great job with this storm, and we can use it just as reliably as our mesoscale models. So this is when everything's really pick up in the Northeast. Again, a great Tuesday in the Northeast. Enjoy it. Do what you have to get done before Wednesday when the weather goes downhill. So this is Wednesday morning. Still pretty clear into the New England area, but further south and west towards Pennsylvania, that's where the system will begin to ramp up and cause some of those problems. So moving this into Wednesday, later in the morning into early afternoon, again, even a place like Philly, northern New Jersey, potentially New York City, and Boston, I think we start as a quick burst of heavy snow and maybe then transitioning to sleet before finally transitioning over to some rain to end this out. But watch for this quick burst of snow here. If you haven't seen snow yet this year, I think this is one of your better shots, and I know it won't be a crazy snowstorm, but it's at least something to start off and get a little bit of a taste of winter here before we get those super cold temperatures to return later on, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. So Wednesday afternoon, see that rain-snow line. As we get further into the day, that rain line is going to push northward with this low pressure here. So switching back over to all rain along I-95 from Philadelphia to New York City. Still trying to hold on here Wednesday afternoon and evening in a place like Boston with snow, but that still likely changes over to rain here into overnight Wednesday. And you can see that heavy snow breaking out here into the ski country. So really some great skiing conditions up there, especially right after the storm with all that fresh powder and I expect those resorts to be very happy about this, especially the ones further north, because you can see here as we get into around midnight Wednesday, it's going to be close here with that rain-snow line, trying to hang on to that all-snow and that heavy wet snow here into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And I think we do, especially in the northern half of these states, but we'll have to watch on the back end for some of that warmer air to try to push through and mess things up going into the beginning half of Thursday, especially right around sunrise. And then as we get into Thursday afternoon, we begin to clear out from this system with just some leftover kind of lake effect snow squalls moving their way here through the interior northeast. And then we'll have quite a nice Friday after this system moves through in the northeast. So, talking about snow potential here, again, it's going to be quite the swath of snow here, all the way from New Mexico all the way up through the Atlantic coastal regions of Canada. So this thing, it's going to work through a big section of the continent, even not even just the country. So we'll watch out for that. Some notable places here: northwestern Arkansas. I think you're going to get slammed with some very heavy snowfall, and it's going to be very heavy wet snow. So I'm worried about power outages there in that region, because this is going to be a heavy snow, and whenever it sticks to these power lines, whenever you have that very wet snow, that really creates problems. So we'll have to watch for that, especially also here into southern Missouri, kind of that bullseye there. And then I think the higher terrains of the northeast getting a lot of that snow. Bring these totals down here in the northeast a little bit, because this is still accounting for some of that snow that is finishing up currently there into sections of New England. But either way, a pretty large swath of kind of that 2 to 4 inches, I would say, for a lot of us, with some places outperforming that. Like I said, especially into southern Missouri and northwestern Arkansas, I think it's going to be a bit of a hot spot. But other than that, find where you live. Here's your key at the bottom, and you can connect that color and kind of see what the models think you are going to see in terms of snowfall. Okay, so that's this system. I do want to briefly touch here on the kind of cold air outbreak that I'm expecting after this. And it will definitely cause a lot of problems for us, especially here into the northern plains. I think is really going to get slammed with this cold air. We're going to take a look at that here. Okay, so looking after this system at that cold air. So you see, this is the system here moving through, getting out of our way, going into the second half of the week. And we'll watch out for that, of course, as we've been talking about. Then on the back side of this, we will have a bit of a cool down going into the second half of this week. So Thursday, Friday, maybe even Saturday, I expect cooler temperatures here, because this is a cold front as well. So we'll have those cooler, drier temperatures behind. Before getting into the second half of the weekend, I'd expect a bit of a warm-up as that cold front kind of weakens a little, and we get another warm-up. But after that, we'll get this little clipper system here to move through. Again, we'll talk about that some other time. But behind that, we'll have quite the Arctic outbreak. And kind of ignore the system here. We'll talk about this later on. But what I want you to watch out for here is see this very tight gradient of millibars here. That's indicating a very strong Arctic polar cold front that is likely going to dive down from Canada and have very cold air with it. So how cold are we talking? Let's go ahead and look here at our temperature anomalies, or how far off the temperature is from average. So again, later, kind of the second half of this week here, after that system moves through, expect some of these blues or these cooler than average temperatures to work in behind that cold front going into Thursday and Friday. And then after that, as we get into the second half of this week, a bit of a rebound in those temperatures here for our Saturday and Sunday. So we'll watch for that. But then look at this. See these super cold colors up there into Canada. We're going to watch that to dive down into the lower 48 with a very potent cold front. Probably the strongest one we've seen since Christmas time. So this thing is really going to pack a punch. And you see some of these temperatures 30, close to 40 degrees below what we expect to have this time of year here into sections of the plains. And that cold front's going to try to work as far southeast as it can before it runs into this southeast ridge here. And there's going to be quite a clash between these two air masses. And what that is going to do is likely fuel more storms like the one that we are dealing with tomorrow. So this kind of gray area or white colors that you see between these two air masses, we're likely to continue to have these storms form and ride this boundary, creating more of these snowstorms through a lot of the same areas that are going to see it tomorrow. So we're going to definitely watch for that. And then going long range, we'll see if this cold polar Outbreak can beat back that southeast ridge eventually and bring those colder temperatures even down into the southeast, getting into the start of February. So we'll watch for that. Another way I like to show this map is looking at our height anomaly, or just kind of what the pressures are doing compared to what they normally should do. So this big area of blue here is that storm we're dealing with in the middle of the week, but watch to the north here. You'll see another big area of blue dive south, and that's that Arctic cold front that we will likely be dealing with going into next week. And you see that diving down here, and you see those super bright purples working their way down, having to fight back this southeast ridge. And again, where these two collide going later on is where we will likely continue a very active storm track between the two. Don't buy so much how far to the north and west of southeast ridge, because as we just looked at with our temperature anomaly, it's likely more of a boundary like this compared to what you kind of see on this map. So we're definitely going to watch that going into the end of January and into the start of February, and we'll see kind of which one of these air masses end up winning out. But what I can promise you is we are going to have some crazy cold temperatures here, especially into the Midwest, near 40 degrees below what we should have this time of year going into next week. And then after that, we get the question mark on the southeast and the northeast. Can we get that cold air to push further east? I think northeast, pretty good shot right now. I'd give it about a 70% shot that we get that Arctic air to move through. Southeast, right now, it's a tough call because this southeast ridge, whenever it locks itself into place, it can be quite pesky. But I do think even eventually going into the start of February, we will have that cold air return to the southeast. So that's all I have for today's video. Again, if you liked it, hit that like button and subscribe. And let me know where you're watching from, and tell me what you see with this storm tomorrow. So continue to comment on this video. Let me know what you're seeing so I can kind of prepare for tomorrow's video. But with all that said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. Make sure you're staying safe and prepared, and I will see you all tomorrow.